6 lines from the end of the parak. Tanan. We'd learned in the Mishnah, Hamakadish b'trumos b'masros. Person marries a woman with truma, u'maiser, matnas, u'matonos. So we discussed this yesterday. What's the chiddush? It's understood. Mechatos, okay? It's the water that's used for the what? For the paraduma. Now, the Torah says you have to have maim chayim. You cannot have stagnant water or rainwater. It has to come from a living wellspring. So a person takes that water that was drawn from mechatos and gives it to a woman, harei mukdeshesli. It was drawn for that purpose. Ube'efa poro, the ash of the paraduma, harezu mukdeshes. She's married. Va'afa pi Yisrael, even though the one who gave the water or the ash is Yisrael, makes no difference. Mar asks, Reminu. Now, the Rambam rules, it's based on the Gemara, Gemara Nedarim, Gemara Mechoros. Is a Jew permitted to charge for his teaching of Torah, for his dissemination of Torah? Is he permitted to charge? So the Gemara quotes a pasuk that based on the pasuk that he is not permitted. Torah shebechsav, yes. Torah shebal peh, not. The oral law, you're not permitted. For the dissemination of the oral law, you're not permitted to charge. The Gemara says in the Nedarim that the reason why a teacher is permitted to charge when he teaches children is because it's really for babysitting, for his discipline. He has to discipline him that you should pay attention, but he's not charging for the actual teaching of Torah. So what about you have people? So what's the basis? How are you permitted to pay a salary for a person who teaches Torah? So the Gemara says that you had people who were actually judges, part of the Sanhedrin. They were called Daini Gezeros, so different official positions, which were rabbinical positions. They had to be paid a salary. So they're not being paid for the Torah or for the decisions they're given, because the person needs a livelihood. So if you want to retain him to function in the capacity that he's needed, you have to pay him a wage. So it's not the wages being paid for the service. The service is being given gratis. So why are you paying him? Because you have to retain him. Because if you don't retain him, you can't afford to function in his capacity unless he has some means of support. That's why it's permitted. But to charge exactly for the dayan says, I will charge you per ruling. We'll see in a moment. The Mishnah says in Bechoros, it's considered the ruling is not a valid ruling. A witness comes, I'm only willing to come to testify if you pay me to testify. Right? You have a expert witness coming to court, doctor, a scientist, or whatever it is. In halacha, if it's within the context of the mitzvah of offering testimony, it's not a valid testimony, because you're not permitted. You have an obligation to testify. We have an obligation to testify, and therefore it's not considered valid, because we draw from Torah, we draw to every mitzvah. And that's the reason why it's cited that if a person charges for a mitzvah, einu rosim in bracha. Cited in the Hilchos Shofar, Hilchos Rosh Hashanah, that a Baal Tukeya is not permitted to charge for a service. And if he does charge for the service, einu rosim in bracha. That's where you find a moel does not charge for a service. Very often, if a moel is really an upright person, and the person says, what do I owe you? He says, you owe me nothing. If you want to give me something, this is what you give me. But he will not say there's a fee that you must pay, because then he's charging for the service. Charge for the service, einu rosim in bracha. You will not see any blessing from those proceeds, which is given for the service that he rendered. Okay? So the Gemara asks, Zanotel schar lo don dinov b'telim. A person receives compensation for the verdicts, the decisions that he renders. Dinov b'telim. His verdicts have no value. Lahoyid. Person receives compensation for the testimony that he offers. Edusa b'telo. His testimony is not valid. Is not admitted into court. Lahazos ulakadesh. What about you have the paraduma, right? You have the water and the ash mixed, and the Kohen takes a fee for sprinkling the mixture on the person who's contaminated. What about you mix the water with the ash together? Maim of Meimoro, the water is considered Meimor as if you drew it out of a cave. It's not considered valve. Rashi learns Meimor means it's considered putrid water. Tosa says that you don't have to learn like Rashi because you need Mayim Chayim. So stagnant water in the cave doesn't qualify for Paraduma. It's the equivalent of stagnant water. You don't have to learn Rashi learns Mayim Sruchim. It's putrid water. Va'afro Efa Mikler. Makle. What the ash of the Paraduma has to be from Paraduma. What about if you take some other animal, you burn its bones or its flesh and use its ash? It's nothing. It's just ash. So it's not considered, even though it's the ash of the Paraduma, but factually it has no value. It is all rabbinically. On a Torah level, it's an asmachta. So how do we reconcile it? See, here it says the person goes and he has the Efa Porah. That means he's utilizing for some financial value. Here he has a mitzvah, and he wants to use a mitzvah, and he says to the woman, the fee they owe me for this, I'm giving you the Efa Porah. He gives it Efa Porah. It says, we'll see in a moment, he transported it from location to location, and when you give it over, you're going to receive a certain amount of value for it. So using it for what? For your personal benefit. But it's not valid, so what's its value? It has no value. So on that, the Gemara says, look, kam b'schar havo umilui, kam b'schar hazo v'kiddush. Meaning, what is the mitzvah of paraduma? To sprinkle or to mix the ash to create the solution, the ash in the water? What about if you have to draw the water from the wellspring? Or you're asked to transport the ash by itself from one location to another? That's not the mitzvah. That's facilitating the material that's needed for the mitzvah. That you could charge. So we're speaking when a man goes, he takes ash, brings it from one location to another. He says, I'm marrying you with the value that I have in this ash, because you'll receive a fee. When you give it to the Kohen, the ash, you will receive something. The Mishnah is not speaking about that. The Mishnah is speaking where he's sprinkling, or where the person itself is actually mixing the water and the ash. And the Mishnah in Bechoros, which says that it has no value, Dekanami, the Tony Hocha, b'meichatus be'ifa poro. And our mission says, B'kudeshes, what is he marrying her with? With the water that was drawn for the chatos and the ash itself, not the procedure. We're not talking about the procedure. Uktani Hosam, what does it say in Bechoros where it has no value, where it's considered meimoro, or it's considered efa makler? Lahazos ulakadesh. That's to sprinkle and to sanctify. That means creating the solution, the mixture of the water and the ash. Shema mino. So therefore, we've reconciled the Mishnah in Bechoros and the Mishnah in Kiddushin. Hajan lachish mekarich adon lon. Hajan lachish mekarich adon lon. Hajan lachish mekarich adon lon. Okay, start the third parak. Same idea. No, it's the same idea. They have better things to do. They have No. They're still doing a mitzvah because they have better things to do. You want to retain them. You're paying them for the time, right? Not for the decision. But if a person goes and says, for every decision, you're going to pay me so much and so, then it's a problem. If that's the way it's actually it's calculated. No, it's interesting. There's a rush. There's a rush in Chulin, which we discussed. You know, shochtim, and it's a problem. You could do an act of slaughtering, but when you do the internal examination, you find the animal to be defective, it has no value. It's not kosher. So let's say a person is paid per head. The shochet is paid per head, right? But they're only paying if it's kosher. So he has a tremendous conflict of interest when he actually examines the animal. Even though it's questionable, it may not be kosher, he actually, because of his conflict, he'll rule that it is kosher, that it's not a treifa. Or let's say he checks the knife in a way, and afterwards he realizes there may have been a nick on the knife. And he has a question in his mind, was the nick there when he did the shechita, or did the nick come about later? So if the nick was there at the time of the shechita, it's not valid. So the man wasted his time. So therefore, the way it's done today, you're paid by head regardless kosher or not kosher. That's where they pay the shochet. So therefore, the shochet has nothing to gain by saying it's kosher or not kosher. To overcome this problem, the same thing over there. The Rush discusses this. If you create a situation where the shochet is put in a position where he stands to lose if it's not, you're doing the wrong thing to the shochet. Because now he's going to do things which are not even unintentional, but because there's conflict, he'll see things not in the proper light. Okay? Homel chavero. Tzei v'karish li chaver isha. Plonis. It's interesting. The Mishnah doesn't say homel l'shlucho. A person says to his friend, not to his shlich, not to his agent. Even though the friend could only act on behalf of a friend only if he's a shliach. But it's not he appointed him as an official agent. He said, do me a favor, you're going there, you're going to be at the wedding, you're going to see this person, marry her for me on my behalf. That's what he asks. It's chavero. And he identifies so-and-so. Here, he sees her. He says, I'm going to be kaddish for my friend, take her for myself. And he says, Harei mukdeshes li, mukudeshes l'sheni. She's married to the second, not to the first. So the question is, what's the chiddush? It's understood, right? You tell me, I would like you to represent me, marry that woman on my behalf. And then he sees the woman he chooses to marry for himself. She's mukudeshes to the person himself. What's the chiddush? So Tosaf himself discusses. It's obvious. So what's the chiddush? That's Tosaf's question. What's so novel about what the Mishnah is saying? Pshita. It's understood. V'yishlomar. The Omra Shaliach Liisha B'shas Kiddushin. Before he says Harei Mukudeshes li, he predicates it. He says to the woman, Ploni Shalcheni L'Kachcha Lo. He says, so and so asked me to marry you on his behalf. That's how he begins the conversation with her. Yeah? That's what he says to her. Ubetoch kach, and subsequently he says to her, Omar lo harei mukdeshes li. Rather than saying mukdeshes lo, he says harei mukdeshes li. He says, so and so asked me to marry you on his behalf. Harei mukdeshes li. So now the question: when he said li, does he mean li because I'm representing him, or does he mean li me because it's for me? So it's not so simple. The Mishnah says when he says li, it's him. It's not the one. Although the li was predicated that he informed her that it initially was asked that he should marry her for him. Wait, what's that? This is very important. V'yoda the kitchel nafshe. But he has to know, she has to know, that when he said li, he meant for him and not for the one who he originally said he was asked to marry on his behalf. Wait, no. Because both have to understand what's going on. If, let's say, she understood when he said li, it meant the person originally he had referred to, so of course she's not married to him. V'hi yoda the kitchel nafshe. Because it's obvious. If after being predicated on that introduction, when he said li, she thought it meant he's speaking on behalf of the one who he's representing, it's understood she's not married. Vashminu chidush. So what's the chidush? The Maldusay ho komar li. Let's start with shal ho komar. Maybe li, we interpret li to mean komashlo and below. That's the chidush. Even though she knows it. You know, we spoke about Dvarim Shebelev. Well, when you said li, I thought you. But if li is understood to mean the one that you're representing, it's irrelevant what you thought in your mind. You're not married to what? To this person. Well, I thought it's two. It's not. It's number two man, not number 8 person. So that's the Middish. When he says li, first she knows. In addition, li means the one who's marrying her and not the one who originally asked to be represented. What he should use is, I'm marrying on behalf of Mr. So-and-so. So you make it clear. And that's always the question, under the chuppah. The person doesn't know exactly what to say. So the rabbi advises the chosan, and what does he say? He says, Harei Mukdeshes, so the rabbi doesn't say li. He can't say li. Right? No, so years ago they say a joke, in Williamsburg there's a street, what's the street between Roebling and whatever it is, and Taylor, Lee, so that he said Lee. That's what they used to say, Lee Avenue. Okay. Today it's transliterated, so, he reads it from the transliteration of it, but you realize but he has to know what it means. Let's see if a person doesn't understand what it means. Harei mukadeshesli, he doesn't. It's like saying it in Chinese. He doesn't know what he's saying. So they do very often. They do it in both Hebrew, and then the person says it in English. You know, you're being betrothed to me. That's a separate. We want to discuss this. So we say she's married to the second man, not to the first man. A man says to a woman, gives her money now, and he says the marriage should take place, be effective in 30 days. So what is she? So until the 30-day period comes, she's a single woman. What happens in the interim? Interim, a person comes, he says, I'm marrying you today, before the 30th day comes. So when was the marriage going to be effective? In 30 days. So if the second person preempts the first person, says marriage proceeds. So when the marriage in 30 days is going to take place, it's affecting who? A married woman. You can't marry a married woman. So the first act of kiddushin is actually nullified because it's going to affect a woman who you cannot marry. So who's she married to? Mukdeshes Lisheni. So she's married to the second person, not to the first person. David, you have difficulty with this. It's good. But this is worse than breaking an engagement. I mean, she accepted money in marriage, and factually, it was in motion to be effective in 30 days. But because she accepted marriage from a third party, so she's married to the second person, not to the first person.
The first person died.
She's not an almana. Definitely not. She was never married. Speaking like an expert. No, it's not. Let me ask you a question. You know, we speak about the Iron Dome, right? They shoot a missile and you shoot it out of the sky. If you wouldn't have shot it out of the sky, the missile would have hit its target. But because you shot it out of the sky, so it didn't hit its target. Same thing. It's in motion to marry a single woman. But what happens if the single woman is no longer there? Right? What did she accept? That it should take effect. When did it take effect yet? Didn't take effect. So it didn't take effect, and now she marries someone else. So it's meant to take effect. It's no longer effective because you can't marry a married woman. So she has to reimburse. She has to reimburse the person for the money that he originally gave her. Doesn't mean anything. Okay. So therefore, what would be now if a Bas Yisrael marries a Kohen, right? She's permitted to eat truma. And a Bas Kohen who marries a Yisrael is not permitted to eat truma. Correct? So this woman here, the first husband was, let's say, Yisrael. The second husband she accepted marriage from was a Kohen. So if the second marriage is a marriage, she's permitted to eat truma. Because now she's a Bas Yisrael married to a Kohen. Even to that degree, there's no question. She's definitely the wife of the second husband, who's a Kohen, so therefore she's permitted to eat truma. So they have a Bas Yisrael, a Kohen, tochel b'truma. It's irrelevant. Then she wouldn't be married until the 30th day comes. What if... Good. It's understood. No, this is the contrast in the next case. We're saying this because there's the next case. We're going to say because it's questionable. There's a case which is it's similar but it's questionable. Therefore, even though it's Bas Yisrael Kohen, she cannot eat truma. And even if she's a Bas Kohen to Yisrael, where the marriage may not be, but since she may be married to the Yisrael, again she can't eat truma. Either case she can't eat truma because it's something the Raisa will speak. Me'achshav v'lach shloshim yom, which we'll discuss much later. A man says, I'm marrying you from now and in 30 days. There's a question what that means. Does he mean the marriage should be retroactive? Meaning it should be now, but 30 days has to come, then it'll be retroactive? Or does it mean it starts now and it concludes in 30 days, like it builds? Or it means now and then he retracts. It's a retraction. What happens if a person retracts within Tokadei Dibur? Within Tokadei Dibur. It's a retraction. It's a retraction. So what he said, me'ach shloshim yom, they mean now, but he says, no, you know something, it'll be after 30 days. So it's a little bit ambiguous. What exactly did he mean? Ubacha v'kitsho, b'sok shloshim yom. And in the interim, a third party comes and marries her before the 30-day comes. So during this period of time, we don't know what she is. Is it going to be retroactive? Is it building? We don't know exactly what's going on. So the halacha is, mukadesh vein mukadeshes. It's questionable whether she's married. What her status is. To the first person, said if that's the case, bas yisrael l'kohen, even if she's a bas yisrael l'kohen, the second person, she cannot eat truma. O bas kohen l'Yisrael, also lo sochal b'truma. Because why? Because since she may be married to the Yisrael, bas kohen marries Yisrael, she's not permitted to eat truma. So since it's unresolved exactly what her status is, therefore it's questionable, she cannot eat truma. Either case. No, just the first stage. This is the first stage of marriage. Kiddushin. What we call betrothal.
So we're talking about kiddushin.
Correct, correct.
If the first stage occurred, and he said the second stage would occur.
That's nothing, nothing.
No man can.
Of course, she's a married woman. She fully married. Everything, correct, correct. Talking about on Torah level. So we'll speak about what happens if 12 months pass, right? And then he didn't consummate. It's rabbinical. It's only rabbinical, but it does make. But it's rabbinical. All that's rabbinical. We're talking here on the Torah level. On the Torah level, she's permitted truma the moment she becomes the wife of the Kohen, even though it's only kiddushin. Okay, now we'll get back to the end. The Gemara now discusses the opening statement of the Mishnah. Now, if a man asks you to marry a woman on his behalf, and then rather than fulfilling or acquiescing to his request, you go do your own thing, is the person acting ethically? Right? It's not proper. It's definitely not appropriate behavior. It's not. So the Gemara speaks. A person says to his friend, "Go and marry this so and so for me." Tana, we learned in the Brisa, Masha Osei Osei. The marriage is a marriage. Elish Nogba Minig Ramos. But the behavior is considered deceitful behavior. It's unethical behavior. Right? Now some people, they pride themselves. You see what I did? I outwitted him. No, don't pride yourself. It's considered something should be frowned upon. It's ugly. It's something which is deceitful. So what's the chiddush? What do we have to tell me this? No, because we have cases. The halacha is if you force a person to sell something and you pay market value, right? What's the halacha? And that person says, I agree. It's a valid sale, right? Tului v'zovin zvini zvini. What about the Gemara says, Tului v'kodesh? You take a woman, you hang her on a tree. He says, you know something? I want you to marry me. If not, you're going to be hanging there for the rest of your life. And she says, I agree. And she accepts the ring. So Gemara says, on the Torah level, she's married. However, the Chachomim, they annul the marriage. Why? Because since his behavior is unacceptable, as he behaved in a unethical manner, therefore we treat him in the same manner, therefore we annul the marriage. Who was a shloka hogan? He acted shloka hogan not appropriately. We treat him also in a similar manner. Therefore we revoke the marriage. So you would think maybe here also, acting so deceitfully, unethically, maybe we should revoke the marriage. The Mishnah says no, Gudeshes. Even though here, on his behavior is really something which is distasteful, nevertheless, it's not to that degree that we're going to annul the marriage. Therefore, it's Mukadeshes. That's what it says. Masha Osui Osui. The marriage is a marriage. Elishnog bo minig ramos. Of course, it's Masha Osui Osui. No, because we say since the Kol Makadish died to Rabbon Makadish, it's all contingent on what the Chachamim want. So if they'll say, you know, we frown upon this. We don't want this kind of marriage. No, it's not to that degree. Therefore, Masha Osui Osui, the marriage is considered a marriage. The woman agreed. She agreed.
Right.
Doesn't make a difference.
The woman saying, I don't want to marry the other guy, I want to marry you.
Doesn't make a difference. Doesn't make a difference. They could annul it.
They're not saying that
No, if you force yourself upon the woman, that's a different story.
Oh, it's saying, the most, but
That's what we're saying.
the
That's
woman
the.
doesn't want to marry the sender, she wants to marry the shul.
Either way, but still, it's still Ramos. First of all, it's not true. I mean, maybe she would have. She says, "I'm agreeing to marry to you." A, B, you're both acceptable to me. You want to marry me? I'll marry you. So we're not saying the first one is not acceptable. He preempted the first one.
Well, I mean, the way Tosfos
The
explains
Gemara, the Mishnah in Bava Metzia speaks out a case. Unfortunately, at least he's not here. He's the expert in Bava Metzia. Person is riding on a donkey, and or on an animal, and he says to his friend, "Could you go please pick up that ownerless object on my behalf?" You know what the person does? Picks it up, says, "I'm taking it for myself." That's what he does. So it says, of course, the one who took it, it's his. He took it. If he would have taken it for the other person, it would have been his. That's what we call schiyah, right? Doing an action which is beneficial to a third party, you're his agent. But he chose no. If I could take it for myself, why should I take it for you? So of course, is it proper behavior? Of course, it's not proper behavior. So therefore, it's considered the acquirers, the one who actually picked it up and acquired it. Something similar. Okay. So the Brises is explicitly the marriage is a marriage, but meaning Ramos. But the behavior is frowned upon because it's deceitful behavior. What about our Mishnah? Our Mishnah doesn't mention about the behavior being distasteful or deceitful. Does our Mishnah allude and concur with the Brisa that it's something which is unacceptable? Tanidan holach nami diktoni. There's a word in our Mishnah which seems to be superfluous. It could have said Omer l'katei kaddish liyisha v'kiddush la'atzmo, kiddush la'atzmo. The word, what's the holach? The word holach, if we delete the word holach, we'd read the same. Why did the Tana add the word holach? He went and acted inappropriately. That's what the word holach is coming to allude to. Tani dan holach nami dikton holach beramos. He went in a deceitful way to marry the woman. So our Tana concurs in terms of is an agreement. The behavior is unacceptable. And it's alluding to make the point it is unacceptable. That's the holach. Many years ago, somebody heard this story. Many years ago, this person, his parents, his father and mother, they were in Auschwitz during the war. So when they came to Auschwitz, they told all the women, the married women, they have to take off their gold rings and put it in a box. That's what they have to do. Okay. The Germans said all the people who arrived, they have to take the jewelry, there's rings, and they put them in the box. Okay? So, having gold, not having was a question of life and death, even in the concentration camp. So this person, you have to be a certain type of person, not to be intimidated under any circumstance. So his mother and father, they went, rather than taking off the rings, they went and started to put rings on their fingers. They behaved like they were taking it off, and they put it on. They put it on, they walked away from the box. Right, the Germans, they figured, who's going to have that level of audacity to take rings out of the box? But that's what they did. Understand? Okay? That's what you call real chutzpah, so to say. But that's what they had, and because of that, they survived because they had that. Holach b'ramos, marry, go marry the woman for me. It goes b'holach. The original intent was holach b'ramos. He went with a deceitful intent. That's what the word holach is alluding to. No, she agrees. She's agreeing. No, Tos says, no, he originally said, Mr. So-and-so asked that I should marry you on his behalf. However, Harei Mukadeshesli. And she understood his intention is, she has the right to marry whoever she wants. Otherwise, what's the chiddush? It's understood. Let's say he doesn't share with her anything. The Mishnah, he's married to the woman. Of course he's married. Why shouldn't he be married to the woman? That's the question. What's the chiddush?
You always say, maybe you say that when a man gets married to a woman, it's got to be done in conformance with what the Chazal wants.
Okay.
You've always said that.
Right.
The Chazal don't want this. Maybe I could have said such a thing.
Well, that's what the Gemara is saying now.
Yeah,
That's what we're saying now.
they're not authorizing the marriage.
Okay.
Maybe why couldn't I say that's what the mission is saying? Even
says
though the
they're
Chazal,
married.
In this case,
no, even
the
though
woman
but
knew
that's
nothing
why the
until the
Mishnah is
shaliach.
there. Normally, I would think that this is not what the Chazal wanted, but it's not valid.
Okay, that's what we're saying. That would be not like Tosfos. That would not, but Tosfos doesn't say it that way. Because over here, the woman herself has a right to marry whoever she chooses to marry. Right? She has a right to marry whoever she wants. She's agreeable to, so there's not even consideration. No, there wouldn't even be consideration. We're going to annul the marriage. When you force the woman to marriage, that's something else. How do you have a right to force a woman to become your wife? Therefore, we annul the marriage, even though, technically speaking, she should be married because she agreed. But because she was forced, she was coerced, we annul the marriage. Here the woman says, look, I have a right to marry who I want. You told me that was his intent, but factually, if he wouldn't have said a word to her, he said, I'm here to marry you on behalf of someone else, she would have been in agreement. She would agree to marry the first person. So therefore, it's deceitful. So what's the chiddush? What's the chiddush? So that's what he's saying. Even though he said li, and li could be understood to mean the first person who's representing, and he did mention that the first person asked to be represented. Nevertheless, since he says li, it's the second person, not the first person. No, she's not a party to deceit. She's not a party to deceit. She's not. Why is she a party to deceit? She has no wish to marry. Now hearing the second offer, she prefers the second over the first. She has a right to marry whoever she wants to marry.
A man comes to a woman and says, I am here as a messenger on behalf of Mr. X to marry you. But now that I see that I really am attracted to you and I'd like you to be my wife.
And she says, I agree to be your wife. What is she doing deceitful?
She knows that he...
So what? You want to marry me, therefore what? I have to be, I'm bound or obligated to marry you because you have an interest in me? She has no obligation.
It would have been a shock to them, and she would have agreed. It would have been a shock to them.
If a woman would have been engaged and already, and now the question, the last moment she backs out, okay, that's a different story. That's we're not talking about that.
Go get the sword out of the guy that sent you, and yes,
Let's say the guy came.
It's not that complicated. No.
Let's say the guy came and acted as a shliach, and she said, I don't want it.
It doesn't,
Because he didn't
say
ask
anything
her.
on technical
Then
stuff.
she speaks.
I don't understand.
also it's deceitful. So she's going to understand it's deceitful too.
Why is she acting deceitfully?
She understands that he...
He is acting. So I'm agreeable to marry this man.
I'm getting married to someone who's acting deceitfully.
Let's say man has a criminal record, unrelated to the marriage, and she marries with him. No, the rabbis really would prefer you don't marry this man. Is there a question the marriage is a marriage? Of course the marriage is a marriage. So what if he's acting deceitfully? He didn't do his tshuva. He hasn't paid. He's going to be sentenced. They haven't yet sentenced him. Is there a question the marriage is not a marriage? Of course the marriage is a marriage. Okay. Now the Gemara asks a phenomenal question. The beginning of the Mishnah of the second parak, it's Shliach Mekadosh, right? And it speaks about appointing a shliach to marry a woman on your behalf. So the Mishnah at the beginning of the second parak speaks about appointing a shliach. The third parak speaks of Omer lechaveiro. A person says to his friend, you see this woman, marry me on my behalf. The Mishnah at the beginning of the second parak says, a person appoints a shliach says, I want you to marry this woman in this particular location. So the Mishnah says, what happens if he marries that woman in another location? In Mukadeshes. Because where was the shlichus? The agency was specifically in the location that he said, not elsewhere. You can't represent somebody in a context where he doesn't want you to represent him. Right? That's the Mishnah at the beginning of the second parak. Here it says, Homer lechaveiro. Why over there we refer to the person who's acting on behalf of the man, shliach, and in this context we refer to his friend, not in the capacity of an agent. Of course, if it works, it's as an agent, but it's not in the official capacity as an agent. I know, but if the Tana uses one, it's understood here. Let's say this Chaver would have acted and married the woman on his behalf. So, of course, the reason why she's married to the man he represents, because he's a shliach. But so if the Tana uses one context, shliach and chavero, so what's the difference? Is he acting officially in the capacity of shliach, or I'm acting as doing you a favor as a friend? He has to be a shliach here. Here's a shliach. So why does the Tana not use the word shliach? Why? Because he's his friend. Chavero doesn't mean his friend because they have any relation. Chavero means his fellow. Chavero means Kol Yisrael Chaverim. Kol Yisrael Chaverim. That means his fellow.
The final result is that he wasn't the shliach.
But if he would have acted on his behalf, it still would have been Chavero, but it would have been Chavero in either way. Homel Chavero, say V'kadosh Liisha. So what is he saying, Chavero? If you meet her, marry. So, and if it is effective, in what capacity? You're my agent. But you're not my official. I'm not appointing you officially as an agent. It's not. I'm commissioning you as an agent. There, he's commissioning the person as an agent because the Gemara is going to make a differentiation. Why each one has its chidush? When a person is commissioned as an agent, we say that usually there's a fee involved because you're acting in capacity as an agent. So therefore, the one who commissions him would expect more of the agent than when I ask a friend or a fellow to do something on my behalf. I would expect more. So let's say the Gemara says, the Gemara is going to explain, I say, I want you to marry a woman, this woman is in let's say, in New York. And then you meet her in Philadelphia. And as an official agent, you marry in Philadelphia. Would you be married? So the Mishnah says, in the beginning of the sentence, she's not married. Why? Because he said, New York, not Philadelphia. You only represent me as my in New York, not in Philadelphia. But I would think that maybe no. Since you're acting as my official agent, when I said New York, because that's called Maramokum, because I had believed she'd be in New York. But I didn't mean only specifically New York, not elsewhere, because since you're commissioned as my official agent, I expect you to go out of your way to act on my behalf. But if I'm asking you a favor as a fellow, I don't expect you to go out of your way to act on my behalf. So when I meant New York, I meant New York, not Philadelphia. So I would think that shliach, even elsewhere, should be married. Therefore, the Mishnah says, even the context of shliach, he meant New York, meant only New York, and not Philadelphia.
So in our case, you would have said the shaliach instead of chaver. The shaliach might not be a marriage.
We'll see. The Gemara is going to discuss this. The Gemara is going to discuss this. That's
He has a different kind of obligation.
right. Each one has a different, because it's a different concept. We'll see. So the Gemara asks over here, why does the Tana use the terminology that he asked his fellow? At the beginning of the second paragraph says he said to his agent, in the official capacity agent. So Gemara says, the Mishnah by saying fellow is telling us a chiddush in that context, and when the Tana uses the term shliach, it's another chiddush. The Tana shlucho, hava aminu shluchu dahavi ramai. Hear this? I would think if you appoint a person in official capacity to represent me, that's considered deceitful behavior. I mean, here you're acting officially on my behalf. I'll give you an example. You work for a company, and you're the purchasing agent, right? And then afterwards, you see something profitable for you, and you act on your own behalf. You know, you're receiving a salary. This is unconscionable. Let's say another person, you're not on my salary, and I say, you see a good deal, a good purchase, buy it on my behalf. Then you act on your own behalf. Is that called deceitful? If I'm working as your employee and I do it, this is unconscionable. That's deceitful because it's unheard of. But another person, I'd say, something. There's nothing wrong with this. No, even chaver, that's called ramos. Even that is unethical and unacceptable. Of course, it's a marriage, but it's still unethical. That's called deceitful behavior. That's the chiddush of the Mishnah here. That even though it's chavero, not in official capacity as shliach, nevertheless, it's something which is unacceptable. To be continued.